All right. Well, thanks for joining me on episode one. I'm Frank Congiu, and today I'm thrilled to have an extraordinary leader with us. Joining us today is Donna Morris, the Chief Human Resources Officer at Walmart, a company known for its scale, reach, and commitment to shaping the future for work and retail, all while serving a mission that I personally love, which is helping people save money and live better. Um, Under Donna's leadership, Walmart's really been at the forefront of redefining workforce strategies while doing it for one of the world's largest employers, impacting the lives of, I think it's north of 2.1 million associates globally. So, Donna, thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to dive into your unique insights and also the approaches you're taking to create value not only for your employees, but for customers and society.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Frank, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Donna, part of the reason I'm doing this podcast, and I share this in my original outreach to you, is that I conduct these CHRO dinners across the US and I get to hear these fantastic insights. And the reality is they're contained to those dinner tables. And so many people out there would love to get to hear sort of what goes on amongst a group of 20 global heads of HR leading some of the world's most prestigious organizations. And right after this, I'm actually headed to host another one of those tonight. And so I think the one piece that I want to make sure we're doing is bringing forward those insights. But what also happens at those dinners is that people get a chance to know each other, and I think it's really important in the world today that we take time to be intentional about that. So the way I do that at the dinner, and the way I'll do that this evening, is through a simple exercise, which is sweet and sour. Just gives you an opportunity to check in on one thing that's going well for you and maybe one thing that's not going so great. Because in this world of LinkedIn and other social media platforms, everything is propped up to make you, celebrate everything that's going so well versus talk about what's maybe not going so well. So, and I can go first, by the way. I don't want to put you on the spot.
I was gonna say, well, you could be the role model, Frank. So, but I don't mind sharing too. So why don't you role model it for me, and then I'll go next.
Yeah. Well, the sour is unfortunately an easy one in that we recently just got a call from my daughter's school that she was being bullied,
Oh,
and it's incredibly tough because she's this sweet, innocent 8-year-old who's never heard a swear word and things like that, and she has a child who's dragging her around and using words that she's never otherwise heard, and I think to have her know that she was holding that in and not telling us and hear that from the school was tough, and so my wife and I are trying to work through that. So that's the sour is an easy one for me. The sweet, and this might be corny, but I think I'm living out what I was really want to do, which is spending time with people like yourself and doing this podcast, and tonight going to host a dinner of again 20 other CHROs, and so working in a great organization that's created a platform for me to do what I think I love doing most.
I love that. I love your sweet, but on the sour, that's really disconcerting. And let me start with the sweet, and then I'll go to sour. And I think my sour probably, frankly, reflects on the unfortunate situation with your daughter. So on the sweet, frankly Frank, with 2.1 million associates, I get the good fortune together with my team to see more sweet than I do see sour, which might seem surprising, which tells me and gives me a lot of optimism that there's just a lot of good that happens on a regular basis. Whether that be how our associates leaned in Boone or Asheville, North Carolina, when the storms hit, and many of them were impacted themselves, but they still went and served their customers in their community. It's like super inspiring. And so I would say, I likely have the good fortune of at least once a day getting some type of insight from across our country or across the markets in which we operate about the service that someone is doing that's in support of another individual and or in service of another community. So a lot of sweetness, and that inspires me. On the sour, hearing your story, specific to your daughter actually is this hour. I just met yesterday with someone who was sharing that their daughter just started college. And I was asking, how is it going? And he was sharing, you know what, college is going great, but she is, frankly, suffering from some mental health challenges. And what was behind those mental health challenges was actually social. It was all socially related. It was the fact that she saw individuals that she considered to be friends doing things that didn't include her, the fact that she felt excluded from a lot of items and activities. And it goes to the point that I think increasingly we can live in a world that can bring out the best on social, but it can also bring out, frankly, the worst and or make people feel very alone and very isolated. So my sour is how do we actually all lean into kindness and more inclusion and more of a sense of trying to make people view that they belong as opposed to feeling like they're excluded from things. And I think it's super important. I think everybody has different religious views and perspectives. So, whilst there's lots of communities that might be celebrating, one, it doesn't mean everybody celebrates. And I think the other is we can't assume that everybody has someone or a group of individuals to celebrate with. And so, my sour to flip it to a sweet would be if everyone could just be a little bit kinder and if everybody could be more thankful for those that are around them, perhaps it would be a better place to be.
I like that a lot, and I thought maybe your suite would include the, ringing of the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, which I saw recently, and, I think when we were at TED together, there was a keynote that was specifically on that, and I don't know if you caught it, but it was around the impact of social media and what it's particularly in the younger demographics and what a negative impact it's having, so, um, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
So, one of the questions I had was around more this is more towards you as a person, but as you think back in terms of sometimes we can connect the dots as we think backwards. So I'm curious about if you would be open to share a pivotal moment or two in your or either personal life or career when you look back and you'd say like this was a enabler or a catalyst for your own growth.
I'd say there's two very specific times and examples. One is I worked earlier on in my career for an amazing manager and leader that really believed that the gift of feedback was very important and more specifically, feedback that was corrective. And he would call me Miss D, short for, Miss Donna, I guess. And it wasn't in the South, it was in Canada. And weekly we would get together and he would give me feedback. And I knew by virtue of the trust and the relationship that we had that that feedback didn't need to be complimentary or, frankly, underscoring strengths. Instead, it was corrective and helping me really develop as an individual and as a leader. And I'm to this day appreciative of that feedback. And I firmly believe that now it's my turn to return to others feedback that's corrective and or developmental in nature. So that was a really big turning point. But the biggest turning point in my career was being in a company that was acquired and having the opportunity to make a move, which I did. And that took me from Canada to California. I took a step down in my career to take steps back up. I'd been vice president of human resources for a small company. I became senior director of talent for a larger company and took that journey all the way to being the CHRO of the company, which was Adobe. And so, what I would say is always, if somebody extends an opportunity, be willing to at least entertain it and take the risk. It was a risk to leave the country and leave the family and leave the friends that I had to make a move together with my little family. But in doing that, that changed the trajectory of our lives. And so I would say that looking back, pivotal moments definitely was the feedback from a leader. And another was just using the opportunity to have the belief in myself to make a change that otherwise I probably would not have done. And once again, that manager helped to be a really good mentor in that time too.
Yeah, I love two things you said there. I mean, I think the first thing around the corrective feedback, a lot of times people take that as it's something about bad what you've done in the past, and the idea that Marshall Goldsmith talks about often is feed forward. It's don't give
Right.
feedback. It's say give people advice around or counsel around what they can do differently going forward, and give them specific examples. And then that idea of being willing to take a risk, I think going back to that, the worst feeling you could have is regret, right? It's if you take a
Right.
risk and you fail, at least you know you tried. But living a life of regret is one that's certainly not desirable.
Frank, I think there's that element of you can always go home, right? So
Yeah.
if you make a change, and as you probably acknowledge, clearly it didn't turn out this way, but you tend to have boomerangs, right? Here at Walmart, we
Mhm.
have boomerangs. They're individuals that have gone and they've, potentially left thinking the pasture was greener somewhere else, and they realized actually had a great opportunity in a great company. I want to return, and I'm sure that individuals that are joining this podcast have experienced similar situations whereby hopefully they haven't had regrets. But often, those same times that create the potential situation of regret are the times that you're learning the most, you're stretching the most, you're pulled outside your comfort zone, and it ends up being highly beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, in a personal story, and I'll make this a quick one. When I had my job at Morgan Stanley coming out of college, and they said they couldn't start me for 6 weeks. I couldn't wait around. I needed some money, and I found a job on Craigslist. It happened to be for a best-selling author, and 6 weeks later, I was telling my parents, "I think this guy has got onto something. I'm going to go work for him." And they thought, "What are you? Are you?" They thought I was crazy taking this risk and working for a small company that was operated out of a Hollywood bungalow versus taking the prestigious job at Morgan Stanley. But I think it worked out all right. And I won't ever know what the other path would have led to. So
I love that, but then that risk that you took has turned out to having so many rewards. So that's awesome.
absolutely, yeah. So shifting over more to some of the stuff I've been following Walmart, and I saw a press release that included other organizations like Verizon. But I'm curious about the Burning Glass partnership and what you're most excited about through that partnership.
Well, let me start by saying we truly believe in a skills opportunity environment. And why that is when you look at the labor force, the majority of individuals don't have 4-year degrees, or they don't have degrees, and or they've not had the opportunity to take post-secondary education. And we collected, I shouldn't say collected, but we convened a group of incredible organizations back in April last year to talk about opportunity and what if we all leaned into skills. And so the Burning Glass Institute is helping us together with a small subset of those, some of the employers that attended our opportunity summit to actually build a taxonomy around 10 jobs, which are very common across many employers and many, many different sectors. And our goal is to release that information in September 2025 to open source it and ideally to keep the momentum going of building a skills taxonomy. Why is this important? Well, today, if you and I both go to a 4-year college or university and we get a degree, it often attributes to certain studies that we've actually been certified for. And that comes in the form of getting your degree or your diploma. What if skills received a similar accreditation and that they were viewed as transferable from one organization to the other? How might that support mobility at a different level than it does today? And how might that actually also build confidence of individuals that the jobs that they are in today actually are earning them credits towards their ability to actually have transferability in their actual careers? So we're really excited about it. Burning Glass Institute allows us to have a neutral convener across organizations and, frankly, a framework for actually building this taxonomy.
I love it, and I love what you've historically done through Live Better You, and the idea of being able to give people who otherwise didn't have the financial means or didn't have the inspiration to even consider going to school and get a 4-year degree. And now this is I think another unlock that makes it even lower hurdle and maybe higher impact and higher return for those individuals.
Absolutely. And what we've actually continued to pivot to do, Frank, our Live Better You program is all focused on building capabilities of our associates. And traditionally, we'd use that more towards certificate or degree programs. Now we're really looking at short term learning. And I'll give some specific examples. Individuals that go from being a frontline associate to being a maintenance technician, individuals that go from being in perhaps a distribution center to actually being a member of our private fleet where our salaries start at $90,000 a year. So looking at these short term, it allows people to actually project their career at a faster pace, but also acquire different skills and capabilities that certainly are afforded opportunities here at Walmart, but might afford opportunities at other organizations as well. And equally, other organizations can be building skills and capabilities across their workforce that can be transferable within their organizations or across other organizations.
Part of what I'm looking for in these conversations is really the what are leaders and organizations doing to radically innovate and create change that helps the lives of employees. And I think this is one of those high return practices that when you do release this in 2025, so many organizations will benefit from because that example of going from, and I don't know what the salary in the previous role, but the one that takes you to 90,000, that's a number that most people coming out of college can't get, right? And so I think that's a
Correct.
number. These are things that are very compelling.
And, Frank, it's not that we want people to move out of great professions like being a teacher, but often individuals will look and they might overlook the fact that there are a lot of frontline roles that frankly individuals can contribute and frankly have earnings that exceed that of an individual that might be a teacher. And we want to make sure that there's increased awareness on the opportunities that exist in not just frontline positions, but I would say a lot of positions that do not require degrees. And that's really important for people to know.
What are the resources you do to equip people to have this learning? I mean, I know about the app, and I believe you at one point you were providing devices. They had the app. They had the opportunity to upskill and in real time on the job and be paid for it. Are there any new developments that you're excited about?
We have an app that's really all about equipping our associates at all levels in the organization with the information they need about their job, their benefits, their organization, and frankly, their opportunity to grow their careers. And that app is called MeAt. It's for frontline, it's for our campus, it's in SAMs, it's across markets. And so we definitely use it as a platform. Think of it as a platform for accessing opportunities, for accessing learning, for personalizing information about opportunities right in the hand of associates, which might be on a bring your own device or it might be on a
Mm.
company device. And it might be a device that they can use off company hours to access information, provided it's not on the hour clock because they're certainly not working at that point in time. So there's different access requirements. All that to say is we believe in a world where digitally we want to have consumer grade capabilities for our associates so that they can find information. And this is where we're excited about the advent of generative AI and the opportunity increasingly in the future to have assistants to support our associates. I'll give you one of the best example, which is a translation assistant. As you can appreciate, we have customers and members that speak all kinds of languages, as do we have employees, our associates, and we want to make sure that they're able to have the ease of communication on the job or in their job. And so now we've started to embed so individuals can easily translate on the job and be really effective in communicating.
You know, I could have used that app when I was in Italy not that long ago. It was a struggle at times. Just thinking about what you were saying there in terms of everybody has access, right? Even sort of the cashier or the frontline employees. You hear this expression all the time that the at the lowest levels of the organization, it's where all the knowledge is, but no power, and often at the top of the organization, all the power, but not as much knowledge. What is Walmart doing to listen to the people that are at the front line as you're thinking about how you're innovating for the future and getting the voice of the people that are so close to the customer?
Well, I think that's a great question. We have, once again, embedded within this platform, MeAt, what we call My Ideas. And we are always looking for ideas. And most of the best ideas, frankly, do start in our front line, right closer to proximity of our customers and our members. So that's one big thing. The other is listening. I mean, we do an associate engagement survey. We're ramping that to be more pulse based. We take that feedback and we actively act upon it. We do it in a digital manner. This year, we had the highest percentage of participation because it was just easy to do on mobile devices, which is great. So, what I would say is listening and learning and acting on feedback is not only a great way to activate opportunities to improve the work environment for our associates, but it's also equally important in terms of how we think about supporting our customers and our members. And it's alive and well here at Walmart. But I would say for those of us in the HR profession, it's just super important. I mean, in a world where you can go on to back to social, back to all kinds of forums to actually provide your points of view and your perspectives, why not do that within the enterprise, and why not learn and act upon that within the enterprise?
Yeah, I love it. And I think you touched on this in the part with the Burning Glass partnership, but just curious around as the nature of work continues to evolve, what's the vision for the future of your workforce, and how are you preparing these associates for the changes, apart from anything you're doing beyond the work with Burning Glass and the work you're doing through Live Better You?
I think that is a big chunk of the work because what we're trying to do is curate jobs and a skills taxonomy and frankly learning that maps to the jobs that we know we're going to have more of in the future. We know that our fleet will continue to expand. We know that we'll need more pharmacy technicians. We
Mhm.
know that we're going to need more individuals that work in our digital space, in our information security space. And so, what I would say is one big aspect of this is workforce planning, making sure that we're not only identifying the opportunities for the future, but we're equipping our associates for that future requirement. So that's one big area. Another big area is um, not to fight off the resistant, to not equip our associates with skills and capabilities specific to generative AI. So we have a platform which we call My Assistant. It is our own internal generative AI capability. We're trying to encourage our associates to leverage it and be a co-partner in the work that they're actually doing. That's super important because we know in the future we're going to all be aided, I think, from the opportunity to embed generative AI capabilities into our flow of work. So that's a big, big aspect. And then I would say the next is the needs for empathetic managers that are really human is going to
Yeah.
continue to be really, really important. And so we continue to invest in what we call Manager Academy. It's building the skills and capabilities of our managers and our leaders. That's going to continue in a world we call our overall position at Walmart is to be people led, tech powered, an omni channel retailer with the focus of helping people save money and live better. And people is very deliberately first, Frank. And so in the world, it might continue to reshape with technology, but we see people playing a massive role and being human, being empathetic, being kind, being service oriented. Those are all attributes of the workforce that we see in the future.
First of all, I love the Manager Academy. I would love to learn more about that at some point because I'm doing some work that's very similar in nature with Columbia University and Rita McGrath and Hitendra Wadhwa and with Emeritus, another ed tech platform, very specifically on this around the human future of work
It's great.
and a big focus on if we have all these technologies and capabilities, what's the unlock from a personal level for how we as people can care more about others and invest in the careers of others, particularly that manager level. And so, I think there's something maybe separate I'll reach out to you on to get a better understanding there.
Yeah, we'd love to share more. I mean, just to give you a perspective, every year we literally have thousands of associates that go through Manager Academy. And it's really immersive around our position as a company, our values, our purpose, and then fundamentally how they can be the most effective managers to their respective teams. And we've got really great data that shows that the result of the investment in Manager Academy ends up that we've got higher levels of engagement, higher levels of retention amongst those that actually participate. And so we are strengthening their skills and capabilities. And so much of it is underscoring the emphasis around people and leading with people in mind, whether that be a customer, a member, and or an associate.
Yeah, and with leading in people in mind, with your people in mind, and right before we jumped on, I was watching CNBC and got to hear from Fed Chair Jerome Powell talking about still continued competitive and tight labor markets. What is Walmart doing specifically, or any strategies you'd say that you're leveraging that are working to make sure that you retain top talent, but also remain an employer of choice?
Frank, I think our workforce is interesting because it's so broad. I mean, we have individuals all the way from their very first job. Maybe they're still in the end of high school, all the way to individuals for which we're their second chapter. They're rewired, so to speak. They've retired perhaps from a primary role and they have a lot of purpose and they have the desire to continue to contribute. And so that spectrum affords us, I think, with a different opportunity than perhaps other employers just by virtue of the breadth. I think the other positive in that is that we resemble America. And when you look at America, it's increasingly diverse. And that's what our workforce looks like, which serves our customers and our members really, really well. Knock on wood, but I would say when we think about how do we develop our workforce for the future, this is where workforce planning really comes into play. This is where our investment in Live Better You in our academies is essential. Because if we can continue to predict what we need for the future, why not develop the people who are already working for you today? And that's a big part of our strategy here at Walmart. And we're fortunate if we think about the number of individuals that go through our Walmart Academy in a year. We're basically like a very, very large public university in this country, just by virtue of the number of individuals that we're educating every year.
Shifting back to maybe a more personal one, is there some advice that you wish you'd heard or listened to earlier on in your career that you would impart on individuals that are in those roles?
I think first and foremost, you have to be a business leader. So I would encourage all of the HR respective individuals joining is learn the craft of the business that you're in. There's no way that you can partner effectively on building the organization and the people capabilities and the reward capabilities and the strategies to attract, retain, develop, and reward if you really don't know your business. So that's number one. And number two is you need to be an individual and a leader, in my opinion, that demonstrates the empathy, the care, and the passion around really ensuring that your workforce is a workforce that's frankly brought along in the journey of your strategy. And you have to fundamentally like people and really care about people. And it might go without saying, but simply put, Frank, this is my third decade in the profession. And what I can tell you is I've met people along the way that are either passionate about the business or they're passionate about people. It is a rare combination when you find people who are equally passionate about the business and the people that work for them. And I think that that's the sweet spot. I think those are the individuals that define the future of human resources, the people function, and frankly, make the biggest impact to their respective companies and the employees that work for them. And so focus on being a business student, focus on really demonstrating how you make impact for the people that work for you.
Very practical and specific, so I love that. I'm going to end on one last question. You have, to your point earlier, a very diverse workforce, incredibly large workforce, and probably a number of complex and challenging issues. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and have one of those go away, what would that be?
I can't point to one issue, but what I can point to, Frank, that perhaps circles around is I wish people would take the time to be respectful and maybe it's even curious about different perspectives and different viewpoints. I can't wave a wand. There's a lot of personal views and perspectives that I might have, but that doesn't mean that those are shared. I think each of us need to create environments whereby we really embrace and role model being about everyone and trying to lift people up. So I can't point to one thing, you know, yes, in my private moments, there's things that, I would fight for. And, if there was one, Frank, and I'll just put it out there, I am someone who fundamentally believes in the rights for everyone. And so I would say fundamental rights, whether it be for women, whether it be for any community, I think is fundamentally important. But I believe that I can best do that by creating an environment for everyone and being really focused on bringing everybody up, if that makes sense. So that would be my core message.
Awesome. I love it. I was asked a similar question, and really quickly I said pay equity. And I think it's maybe not something I might have thought of that long ago, but having two daughters, it's something that's immediately now far more relevant to me personally. So maybe there was some awareness there.
I love that. I love that.
Donna, thank you so much for taking out the time to spend with us here today. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to having you in future CHRO dinners and other events and wherever we may cross paths again.
I love it, Frank. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks and have a great evening this evening.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Human Forward. Randstad.